Clients always satisfied, so call me Neo. What you need just to strategize. One eye on the market, here to make you profit.
What's going on, guys? David Haun, your favorite realtor's favorite realtor. We're back with the September market update, and we're taking a look at the data from August, and we'll actually be comparing to the data from June and July to kind of predict some trends and take a look at what we can expect going forward as far as market strength and where we think pricing is going to go. So let's dive right in. Average sale price fell off in August. After pulling back between June and July, July was sitting right about 390,000 and it fell off all the way to 367,786 in August. Now, when the price pulled back last month between June and July, we actually saw price per square foot hold steady. It was 222 to 223. I mean, it just held steady right there. So what that suggested was that the rising cost of everything else right now was actually pushing people into smaller homes, not forcing them to pay less for the same home. And so at that point in time, as we were seeing these declines, it's kind of like, all right, where are things going to go now? You know, and there's some other statistics that we'll talk about here in a minute that kind of raise some questions, right, as far as where things would go. Now that we've seen this huge pullback, let's see what price per square foot did this month. And again, we can see that the pullback has actually lasted from like, I think, March or April. I mean, it's been pulling back for several months. Not a huge pullback, though. Overall, we're still 7.4% up year over year. And again, that's coming out of some pretty massive growth during the COVID years. Price per square foot fell as well in August from around $223 to $216 per square foot. It's still up 9.6 year over year. But overall, we can see this pullback, and that tells us that it's not just people being pushed into smaller homes right now. People are actually paying less for the homes. Now, whether that's a matter of sellers having to reduce price or whether they're just pricing appropriately to the falling market, we're going to look at some other data here in a second that might give us some ideas there. But that's interesting to note. As far as new listings, we saw a huge spike in June. It was the highest month of new listings that we'd had since all the way back here in early 2019. And after that, it just fell off, right? So when we saw this first spike, I'm thinking, oh man, like if we see a huge increase in inventory, that's obviously going to push pricing down because we all know supply and demand is a huge driver of price. That has not been what's happened. In fact, it's fallen off again between July and August, all the way down to around 352. And that's 16.2% less than last year. So we are not seeing much activity coming onto the market. And to me, that actually forms a strong floor for the Tulare County market, because if we don't have the supply to support the people here, it's going to be really hard for us to see it collapse. The number of homes for sale dropped also to 552. And again, what we're talking about here is overall inventory, right? So if the number of homes available is falling, that can only be good for the strength of price. Now, it doesn't mean that price is necessarily going to go up, but it does have that support on the supply side. Again, we're looking at 552 homes for sale currently, and that's up 7.6 from this time last year. Now, pending sales and closed sales are two statistics that I like to look at, again, to try to judge the stability of the market, right? They don't necessarily affect price, but they will show us how much buyer activity there is. And if demand has decreased significantly, I feel like that would show in these two statistics. So as far as pending sales, we're holding firm with what we would expect. It's 319 in August. That's down 12% from the previous year. But again, the COVID years were very strange in a good way for sellers, for sure. But again, we're not in any way out of line from what we would expect in pending sales. And the same is true for closed sales, right? If you look at the highs and the lows, we're sitting right about in the middle. It's fallen the last 2 months, but it's also worth noting that we have gone back to school now. People are transitioning, in other ways. And typically when homes are coming on the market, they're going to happen in spring and early summer. As we leave summer and head into fall, there typically is a lull, for both agents and for buyers and sellers, just as people are already going through other things in their life. So this is a normal slowdown that we would expect year over year. Definitely nothing concerning in my mind. We're down 5.8% from the previous year, but again, just based on overall activity during COVID, it's definitely not a concern. Again, what this tells me is as Bay Area markets might collapse, we have a lot of people coming in here because the pricing is more affordable. So as long as that demand holds, we're going to be in good shape in Tulare County. The number of days on market is at 11. That's actually a slight pullback from last month, and this is a statistic that actually surprised me. As price started to decrease, I would expect that sellers were having to reduce price based on the market turning on them. But the days on market suggest otherwise. It suggests that the majority of sellers are still pricing their homes properly and they're selling quickly. So there's still some homes that are sitting. If your home has been on the market for a while and you're not selling, I would recommend looking at price because demand seems to be holding strong and homes are still selling quickly as of August. The months of inventory, this again goes back to supply, we're holding right at 1.8. So the typical buyer's market starts around 5-6 months of inventory. We haven't seen one of those in Tulare County for a long time, but in COVID, we got all the way down to like 0.4 months. I mean, just nothing, you know what I mean, of inventory. And that takes us back to the supply conversation, right? If the average buyer's market is around 5-6 months of inventory, we haven't seen anything close to that in the last 3 years. And we're nowhere close to it now. Even as prices are falling, supply and demand is very strong in the seller's favor and looks to remain that way. Again, when we saw this big spike between May and June, I was kind of like, oh, I don't know. If that keeps increasing, we could see trends the other way. But the last 2 months have been pulling back. So far, the supply side of things is fantastic as far as, providing a nice floor for sellers and giving us confidence that there's not going to be a massive collapse. In summary, average sale price fell in August from around $390,000 to $367,786. Price per square foot also dropped to $216 per square foot, confirming that buyers aren't just buying smaller homes due to inflation, they're paying significantly less than in previous months. Now, surprising to some, the number of new listings fell again in August. This is actually to be expected in late summer months because things typically slow down as kids go back to school and everyone is going through other transitions in life. Pending and closed homes are in line with expectations. The average number of days on market remains low, and our total inventory hasn't grown at all, holding steady at 1.8 months. It's still a strong seller's market when considering supply and demand, even as the average sales price declines. After an unprecedented spike in values over the last few years, a pullback is to be expected. So, this is kind of the same things that we've been discussing. If trends continue to shift one way or another, if we do see a massive influx in new listings, or we do see buyers, the pending and closed sales, if we see buyer demand start to fall off, we could see things change. But right now, as far as strength of market, we're looking great in Tulare County, even as prices are falling off a little bit. That does provide an opportunity for buyers. However, as most of us know, the increase in rates is kind of counteracting that. So again, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next month. Take care.
One that said the day, ask David, huh? David, huh? David, huh? When they all falling short, pass me the baton. Can't handle your inquiries, a marathon, and can't nobody do it better.